Okay, so this is a part 2 of the photography part of it. I wanted to give you real examples of what I was trying to say with shadows, with the background images, with the shallow depth of field. And someone did have a question about the lens that I use. So you don't need to have a macro lens. It is, you don't have to have it because I think you can make things work. The only thing about it is that you'll be doing a lot more editing if you don't have a lens that can zoom in really well. And so that's why I personally like to use this. It's a 35 millimeter. You can use a 50 millimeter, but I love my 35 millimeter. Just because it's a fixed lens, as well as the f-stop in it is a 1.4. So really that just means that like this can go, oh yeah, so 1.8. So like on my camera settings, the f-stop 1.8. This just means that this is really open. My lens will open really big, and when it's open really big, it doesn't. It also allows you to have this shallow depth of field, where things will look more blurred out from the background. And I'll show you what that means right now. So I'm gonna go and show you my process in taking photographs and how I choose them, as well as what goes into having them look better. I'm just trying to find this screen share. There you go. Oof. Okay. So it's doing this really crazy thing. But okay, there we go. Okay. So I have Lightroom, and with Lightroom, I can do a lot of things. It's not Photoshop, which is fine, but with Lightroom, I am able to simply edit photographs so that they look better, and it's not a ton of ton of things that I'm doing anyways with photographs. So let me show you a good example with the fruit that I did for this one shoot. So with freezing fruit. So I'll show you my thought process in like from the beginning to end. So here's a photograph where this was the first photograph that I took. So actually this wasn't. I took worse photographs, but as you can tell, like in the background, I have a plant right here, and then I have like a kitchen fruit placing thing in the background, and then I have these bowls that are more aesthetically pleasing than just like regular bowls, and that's always nice. So then took a few photographs rather than this. So this is okay. I just don't think that there's anything really interesting about it. If people wanted to see fruit, yeah, that's great, and they get to see fruit. But, you know, I think this is a little bit more interesting than just this. And then I'll show you. So this is a photograph, and if I go to develop, I'll be able to show you. So my exposure was darker in this one. If I do it one more time, my exposure is up. And then actually, I started to bring back in my reflectors. So these berries, they look more white right here because I was using a reflector that was able to bring back some light back into the subject. So that's what reflectors will do. It just brings in more light. And then these are more examples of like in the middle of the process, like what do people want to see kind of thing. So I can do this and have it, you know, from up top. I also want to do something from the bottom. And then as I did some more things at the bottom right here and at this angle, I want to make sure that the background was interesting. So even though this isn't in focus, it makes things a lot more interesting than if I were to just have things on this cutting board. So even making sure that this plant is still in the background and that this fruit divider placer is still in the background. And even in the background, like I was able to show that there's an open window. And you don't really know like where this is, but you know that people live here kind of thing. Like it's an actual thing. So having things like on the background just makes the photograph more interesting than if I were to just take this and have it look. So the end photograph, and we just needed a photograph that showed all the fruit, is right here. So obviously, I think that this photograph, these types of photographs, are more visually interesting and more visually pleasing than just this photograph right here. So I'm going to show you what I did, what I ended up, how I ended up editing these photographs, just so that they were a little bit more interesting. So I took one from here, just to like, here's like the rinds and, you know, what was left over from the fruit. I increased the temperature. I'm sorry, I increased the exposure a little bit. I brought in some more brightness. And I just brought up the saturation, and that just means like the colors that are on there are brighter. Just careful with that because you don't want to make things look too fake, and that's something that actually happens. So these were the final products with this, and like I really like this one just because like you get the fruit and of what you're actually trying to do. Some fruit that's already there, but then you also have some objects that that make this photograph seem more real than like staged. And then the same thing right here. So then with this cowboy bean, so this is what I was trying to say of like I split the contents in a way that you're able to see what you'll be using. So here are the avocados, the bell peppers. I didn't cut them. Bell peppers look a lot nicer when they're full and whole rather than when they're chopped up. Same thing with tomatoes. And then here are the spices that I used. I just made sure that if I'm going to use spices, small things like this, I'm going to put them in the same bowl. And then I try to use just glass objects as well as white plates. And this is just that board that I showed you earlier. The background where these are, it's just that plywood that we put together, and Desi actually made that, which works really great. And then you can always, on the other side, there's more of them, and you can change the colors. I've seen photographs that look really great on tabletops that look really great and beautiful on a white rustic kind of antiqued look table, which also look really great. So this is what I'm talking about with your shallow depth of field. When you zoom in right here and you're using, this is, if I look into this photograph and I really want to know what settings I used, I can look into that. But I can, just knowing from my camera, like this is, I used a 3.2 f-stop with my 35mm using a 400 ISO, and all these are found like right here, if you can see this mouse. But I went in and I just took something, you know, these are interesting, and then, you know, scatter things around so it looks like things are alive, and you kind of like, yeah, you're looking at these green onions, but at the same time, like you can't help but like notice all these beautiful other colors that are in there, and then just like making the photograph look alive by the things in the background that aren't necessarily in focus. So this is, you know, the spices, just in case I wanted to show just the spices of how much you were going to use, kind of things of portions, the garlic and the cumin maybe, and the salt and the pepper, and just the oil and vinegar that I used in that. And then the process in the beans of like you rinse them, then here they are when they're rinsed, here they are when they're in the crock pot. I mean, you need to soak them and then put them in the pressure cooker kind of thing. And then this is the end product. Leaving this in the background, this plant made this photograph look more interesting than had I not used it. And then I'll show you like some of the photographs that I didn't love in this. So if I look at all the photographs that I've taken with this bean, like here are some of the bad ones that I didn't like. Let me show you. There was one photograph where oh, here it is. Just for the heck of it, I just decided to do this on like a white background. It's okay. I think if I wanted to put this like on a menu, maybe it would serve its purpose differently than something that looks more alive. Just something that looks more alive like this. So that's kind of my process in when I'm taking photographs. So here are the photographs that I've done. So here are the ones that I ended up choosing for the cowboy bean salad. So here's one where it's the salad and the ingredients all kind of mixed together right before we put this in, the dressing in. Here's a photo of the beans, and I just thought this was better than just a photograph of just like beans really close up like this, because we can have that if we want it, but I just feel like visually this is more pleasing to the eye than just something like this. It makes the photograph seem more alive. Here we go, and then this is the final product. So I just uploaded some photos for this next recipe with the kale salad. Okay, so feel free to kind of just do your own thing. I can't find them on Lightroom right now, but really the main thing is make things look alive and real when you go into them, and take as many photographs as you want. So there you go. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any other questions, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have.